Daniel's eyes opened slowly. At first, all he could see was a blur of light and color. His ears rang, and his body felt heavy as though he had been asleep for weeks. The last thing he remembered was his ship, shaking violently as a storm of meteors tore through space. He had tried to steer, but alarm screamed, metal bent, and everything went black. Now, instead of the cold silence of space, he found himself lying on soft grass. The air smelled sweet, filled with a mix of flowers he had never known. Strange towers of crystal rose in the distance, glowing faintly under the sky, which was painted with two suns. The world looked alive in ways he could not explain, as if every leaf and stone carried its own secret light. But the strangest thing was the small boy curled beside him. The child's face was peaceful, his tiny hand gripping Daniel's sleeve, as though afraid to let go. Daniel's heart raced. He had no idea where the boy had come from. He certainly had not been on his ship. Before Daniel could rise, shadows fell over him. A ring of tall armored figures surrounded him, their eyes glowing through the slits of helmets. Their armor shone like liquid silver, their spears humming with energy. They looked nothing like humans. Their faces were long, elegant, with smooth, blue skin and markings that glimmered under the suns. At their center stood a woman who was clearly not a soldier. She was taller than the rest, her presence commanding. A silver crown rested on her brow, and her flowing robes shimmered like water. Her long hair, dark as midnight, framed eyes that seemed both sharp and curious. She stepped closer, and the guards immediately lowered their spears. The woman's gaze fell on the boy first. She tilted her head, her voice carrying both authority and wonder. "Is this child yours, human? But where is his mother?" Daniel froze. His lips parted, but no words came out. He had no explanation. His mind scrambled for answers, but all he knew was that when he had opened his eyes, the child was there. The princess narrowed her eyes, studying his hesitation. She waved her hand, and two guards stepped forward, lifting Daniel to his feet with surprising strength. The boy stirred, clinging to Daniel's arm, refusing to be separated. The princess's eyes softened slightly at the sight. "I am Princess Leora of the Crystal Court," she declared. "You stand in the heart of my realm. Few humans have set foot here, and fewer still without permission. You will answer me, or you will not remain free." Daniel's throat was dry. He swallowed hard and finally spoke. I don't know. He wasn't with me before I was on my ship. There was a storm, and then nothing. When I woke up, he was here." Murmurs rose among the guards. Some looked suspicious, others fearful. The princess raised her hand for silence. Her gaze lingered on the boy again, as if she saw something Daniel could not. The child looked up at her, wide-eyed and unafraid. His small fingers still clung to Daniel's sleeve. Something about his calmness in front of these towering strangers made Daniel's chest tighten. Whoever this child was, he felt responsible for him. Leora's expression remained unreadable. "You expect me to believe that a child simply appeared beside you? Do you take me for a fool?" Daniel shook his head, quickly. "No, I swear I don't understand it either, but he's not mine, at least not in the way you think." Her words were sharp. "Then whose is he?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted, his voice low. "But I'll protect him, no matter what." The princess studied him in silence, her eyes narrowing as if measuring the truth in his words. At last she turned and gestured toward the crystal towers in the distance. "Bring them to the palace," she commanded. The guards closed in around Daniel and the boy. They walked across bridges of shining stone, past gardens filled with plants that glowed faintly, their petals moving as though alive. The air shimmered with unseen energy, making Daniel feel both awed and uneasy. Everywhere he looked, the alien city sparkled, a place built with both beauty and power. The boy walked quietly at his side, never letting go of his hand. Daniel glanced down at him often, wondering who he was, where he had come from, and why fate had thrown them together. Boy did not speak, but his calmness gave Daniel a strange comfort. When they reached the palace, its gates opened with a deep, resonant hum. The walls were carved from crystal so clear that Daniel could see light moving inside like rivers. Inside, vast halls stretched endlessly, filled with alien nobles dressed in colors that shimmered with every step. Their eyes followed Daniel with suspicion, curiosity, and in some cases, open hostility. The princess led them to a chamber lit by floating orbs. She seated herself on a throne carved from pure crystal, its surface glowing softly under her touch. The guards placed Daniel and the boy before her, though they did not separate them. "Speak again," Leora said firmly. "Tell me why this child clings to you, human, if he is not yours." Daniel looked at the boy, then back at her. "I don't know why he clings to me. But maybe he thinks I can keep him safe. And I will." The princess's eyes searched his face, her voice softening slightly, though her authority remained. "Do you realize what you are saying? In my world, a child without a mother is either a tragedy or a curse, and yet you claim him as your own, without blood or truth." Daniel's voice grew steadier. "Blood doesn't matter. If he needs me, then that's enough." The hall fell silent. Nobles exchanged uncertain glances. Some whispered, others frowned. The idea was strange to them, that a man could claim a child not his own, not of his blood, and still protect him. Leora leaned back on her throne, her eyes narrowing with thought. She had seen many humans before, but none who spoke like this. None who held a strange child with such unshaken loyalty. It unsettled her, and yet it intrigued her. At that moment, the boy turned his head and stared at one of the glowing orbs floating above. His small hand stretched out, and the orb pulsed brighter, reacting to his presence. Gasps rose from the nobles. The princess's eyes widened. "This is no ordinary child," she whispered. Daniel tightened his grip on the boy's hand, his heart racing. Whatever secret the boy carried, he knew only one thing. The princess would not let them go easily. And deep inside, Daniel feared that this strange encounter was only the beginning of something far greater than he could ever imagine. The great crystal hall of the palace seemed to breathe with light. The floating orbs above glowed brighter and dimmer in rhythm, as though the room itself was alive. Daniel stood with the child at his side, surrounded by guards and nobles whose eyes carried both curiosity and mistrust. Princess Leora's words echoed in the chamber. "This is no ordinary child." Whispers swept through the room. Some nobles leaned forward with excitement. Others stepped back with fear. Daniel felt all those eyes on him, weighing him like a man on trial. The boy pressed closer to his side, his small hand gripping his sleeve tightly. Daniel gave him a reassuring squeeze, though inside he was just as lost as everyone else. Leora's gaze stayed fixed on the boy. "Bring them to the council chamber," she commanded. Her voice was calm, but there was steel hidden beneath it. "We will hear more." The guards surrounded Daniel and the child once again, escorting them through glittering halls. Everywhere Daniel looked, he saw alien beauty. Walls of crystal that carried rivers of light, floors that shone like glass, statues carved from gemstones taller than ships. And yet, despite the beauty, he felt trapped. At last they entered a circular chamber where tall seats rose around them in tiers. Alien nobles filled those seats, their robes shimmering with strange colors. At the center stood a platform where Daniel and the child were placed. Above them, light filtered down from a dome painted with constellations he did not recognize. The council began at once. A noble with pale green skin and golden eyes rose to his feet. His voice rang sharp and accusing. "The human lies. He has brought this child here for a purpose. Perhaps to spy, perhaps to destroy. Look at how the orbs answered to the boy's touch. This is dangerous." Another noble stood, older and slower, his robe heavy with silver chains. "No," he said thoughtfully. "Perhaps it is prophecy. Long ago it was written that a child of two worlds would arrive carrying light within. If this is true, then we must guard him." Arguments erupted around the chamber. Some voices hissed in fear. Others cried out in hope. The boy simply looked up at them all with wide, innocent eyes, as though unaware of the storm of politics around him. Daniel stepped forward, his voice unsteady but firm. I don't know who he is. I don't know where he came from. All I know is that he was there when I woke up, and I won't let anyone harm him. A noble sneered. Listen to the human. He admits he knows nothing, yet he claims the child as his own. Leora raised her hand, and silence fell again. Her voice was measured, careful, but her eyes glimmered with something that betrayed her calm surface. If this child is a danger, we must know. If he is a blessing, we must also know. Until then, neither fear nor hope should rule us. She turned her gaze to Daniel. You, human, you will remain here under watch. The child will stay with you. We will study him, and if your words are false, you will answer for them. Daniel nodded, relief washing through him. At least they would not separate him from the boy. He bent down slightly and whispered, Don't worry, kid. I'm not leaving you. The boy's grip on his sleeve tightened in answer. That night, Daniel and the boy were given a chamber within the palace. It was not a prison cell, but it was guarded at all times. The walls were smooth crystal, glowing softly, and the bed felt like resting on air. Still, Daniel could not sleep. He sat by the window, staring at the alien city outside. Towers of crystal stretched into the sky, their peaks glowing under the twin suns that never fully set. He looked at the boy, now sleeping peacefully. The child's face was calm, almost glowing under the light. Daniel wondered again, who was he? Why had he appeared beside him? Why had fate tied them together? The next morning, Princess Leora came herself. She entered without announcement, her robe flowing behind her, her crown catching the light. The guards bowed deeply, but Daniel simply stood, uncertain what gesture of respect was expected. Leora studied the boy as he stirred awake. He looks ordinary, she said softly, and yet I saw what he did. The light obeyed him. Her eyes shifted to Daniel. You claim he is not yours, yet he clings to you. Perhaps he knows something we do not. Daniel's voice was tired but steady. Maybe he doesn't have anyone else. Sometimes a child doesn't need an explanation. He just needs someone to stay. Her expression flickered as though his words struck something inside her. For a moment, the weight of royalty seemed to slip from her, and she looked simply like a woman faced with something she did not understand. You speak strangely, human, she said finally. Among my people, blood decides all. Without blood, there is no claim. Yet you stand here claiming what is not yours. Daniel looked down at the boy, then back at her. Blood isn't the only thing that makes someone yours. Choice matters too, and I choose to protect him. Leora's eyes lingered on him for a long moment. Then she turned to leave. We will see if your choice can withstand what is coming. Over the next days, rumors spread quickly. Servants whispered about the strange child who made lights glow. Nobles argued in corners about prophecies and dangers. Guards muttered about omens. Daniel noticed the stares wherever he went, and he knew many wanted the boy taken from him. But something else happened too. Whenever the child walked through the palace gardens, the plants bent toward him. Flowers bloomed where his feet touched. The grass. Small glowing creatures fluttered near, as if drawn to his presence. Even the guards who watched Daniel closely could not hide their unease when the boy passed. One evening, as the suns dipped low and painted the sky with gold, Leora appeared again. She walked beside Daniel in the garden, her hands folded before her. The boy ran ahead, laughing softly as glowing birds circled him. Your people, Leora said slowly, are known for war, for taking what is not theirs, and yet you speak of protection. You confuse me. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. Not all humans are the same. Some fight for power. Others fight just to keep someone safe. She looked at him sharply. And which are you? Daniel's answer was simple. I don't know, but for him, he pointed at the boy, I'll fight if I have to. Leora's eyes softened, though she quickly masked it with royal calm. The council grows restless. They demand answers. If the child is truly touched by prophecy, they will want to use him. If they believe he is a curse, they will want him destroyed. You must be ready. Daniel's stomach tightened, but he stood firm. Then I'll stand between him and anyone who tries. The princess turned her gaze to the boy, who now held a glowing bird gently in his hands. Her voice was almost a whisper. Perhaps that is why he clings to you. Not because you are his blood, but because you are his shield. Daniel said nothing, but he felt the truth of her words settle heavy in his chest. That night, as stars filled the alien sky, Daniel sat, awake again, watching the boy sleep. Outside voices rose in the palace, arguing deep into the night. He knew the storm was coming. He did not know if he could withstand it, but he knew one thing with certainty. He would not let go of the boy's hand. And somewhere in the halls of crystal, Princess Leora lay awake as well, her mind turning over questions she had never asked before. For the first time, she wondered if perhaps blood was not the only bond worth trusting. The palace grew restless with each passing day. Rumors flowed through its crystal halls like hidden rivers. Rumors about the human who guarded a child that made lights glow and plants bloom. Some whispered the boy was a blessing. Others whispered he was a curse. Daniel could feel the weight of all those whispers pressing against him, though none dared speak them aloud in his presence. The child, however, seemed unaware of the tension. His laughter filled the gardens, his small steps leaving trails of blooming flowers. Wherever he went, life seemed to follow. Birds circled him, insects sang louder, and even the still waters of fountains rippled when he came close. Daniel often watched in awe, though worry never left his eyes. Whatever this power was, it would draw danger as easily as wonder. One morning, Daniel was summoned again to the council chamber. Princess Leora awaited him there, standing tall in her silver crown, her eyes cool but sharp. Nobles filled the seats around them, their robes glittering with shifting colors. The boy sat at Daniel's side, calm as always, though his hand never left Daniel's. A noble with skin like pale glass rose first. The child is not natural. He bends the energy of the palace itself. Look. He gestured, and servants carried forth a relic, an orb carved long ago from the heart of a fallen star. It glowed faintly, a treasure of the royal court. Let the boy touch it, the noble demanded. Daniel bristled. His instinct was to protect, to refuse. But Leora lifted her hand. Do not fear, she said softly. We must know the truth. The boy looked at Daniel, waiting for his silent permission. With a hesitant nod, Daniel let him go. The child walked forward, small hands reaching out. The moment his fingers brushed the orb, the chamber filled with blinding light. Gasps rose from every noble as the orb blazed brighter than it had in centuries. The air shook, and the walls themselves seemed to sing with power. When the glow faded, the boy stood calmly, unharmed. The orb, however, continued to shine long after his touch left it. The nobles erupted. Some cried out in joy, others in terror. "It is the prophecy," shouted one. "It is the end," shouted another. Daniel rushed to the boy, pulling him close. His heart pounded as though he had just fought a battle. The child pressed his face against Daniel's chest, seeking comfort. Daniel wrapped his arms around him, glaring at the nobles. Princess Leora rose, her voice strong enough to cut through the noise. "Silence," she commanded. And silence fell. She turned to Daniel. "Now you see. This child carries something no ordinary being should. Do you still claim him as yours?" Daniel met her gaze without hesitation. "Yes. No matter what he carries, he's mine to protect." Her eyes softened almost imperceptibly, though her voice remained steady. "Then your burden grows heavier, human. For powers like his are not easily hidden nor easily controlled." That night, Daniel sat awake in his chamber once more. The boy slept beside him, but Daniel's mind churned. He remembered the storm, of meteors, the flash of light, the sudden weight at his side when he woke. The child had not come from his ship. He had come from somewhere else, perhaps pulled through the broken portal, perhaps created by it. The thought chilled Daniel, but he pushed it aside. What mattered was not how the boy had arrived, but that he was here now. The next day, Leora visited again. She stood by the window, gazing out at the city where crystal towers shone under the twin suns. Her voice was quieter than usual. "Do you know what the prophecy says, human?" Daniel shook his head. "No. I only know what I see. A child who laughs, who clings to me, who just wants to be safe." Her eyes lingered on him before turning back to the sky. "The prophecy speaks of a child born not from one world, but from two, a bridge between peoples. He will either bring light and unity, or destruction and ruin. No one knows which. That is why the council fears him. That is why they watch you so closely." Daniel frowned. "So they think he could save you, or destroy you?" "Yes," she said softly. "And perhaps both." Silence stretched between them. Then Daniel said firmly, "Prophecy or not, he's still just a boy. He deserves to live, not to be used or feared." Her eyes flickered at his words, as though something inside her stirred. She did not answer, but Daniel saw the conflict in her face. Later that day in the palace gardens, the boy's secret deepened further. While playing near a pond, he reached into the water. The surface glowed where his fingers touched, spreading out in ripples of light. Fish with shimmering scales rose from the depths, circling his hand as though obeying his silent call. Servants watching nearby gasped and hurried to spread the word. By evening, half the palace knew. The boy was no longer simply unusual. He was undeniable. That night the council met again in secrecy. Daniel was not present, but whispers reached him through guards who pitied his situation. Some nobles wanted the child crowned as a holy symbol. Others wanted him destroyed before his power grew. A few even argued to separate him from Daniel, believing the human clouded the truth. When Daniel heard, his stomach turned to stone. He sat by the boy's bed, watching him sleep. The child's small hand rested against his arm, trusting him completely. Daniel whispered, "I don't care what they say. I'm not letting them take you." As he spoke, the door opened quietly. Leora entered, her face calm but her eyes weary. She looked at the boy, then at Daniel. "The council grows dangerous," she said. "Some already plan against you. They believe you hide the truth. They think you use him." Daniel shook his head sharply. "I don't even understand him. All I know is he needs me." She studied him for a long moment. Then, almost to herself, she whispered, "Perhaps that is why he chose you." Daniel blinked. "Chose me?" She turned away, hiding her thoughts behind her royal mask again. "Sleep while you can, human. Tomorrow will test you." When she left, Daniel felt both comforted and unsettled. What had she meant by chose? The boy was just a child. But deep down, Daniel remembered how the boy had clung to him the moment he opened his eyes. As though in a world of strangers, the child had decided Daniel was the one safe place. The next morning, guards arrived not to escort Daniel but to surround his chamber. Tension crackled in the air. Daniel knew then that the child's secret was no longer safe. The entire palace, perhaps the entire kingdom, would soon demand answers, and he also knew one thing. He was not ready to give them. The palace no longer felt like a home of crystal light. For Daniel, its shining halls now seemed more like a cage. Guards followed his every step, eyes sharp, hands resting on their weapons. The boy stayed close to him, silent and watchful, as if sensing the danger growing in the air. Rumors had become shouts. Servants whispered less and spoke more openly. Some called the boy a gift from the stars. Others spat the word, curse. And in the great council chamber, voices rose higher with every passing hour. Princess Leora tried to hold order. She spoke of patience, of study, of waiting for truth. But the nobles were no longer calm. Some demanded the boy be placed under the protection of the temple. Others insisted he be taken from the human. A few even declared he should be destroyed before his powers grew beyond control. Daniel heard these words through the cracks of half-open doors, through whispers from guards who pitied him. His heart grew heavier each time. He knew the storm was building, and sooner or later it would break. That night, the break came. Daniel woke to a sound outside his chamber, soft steps too many for ordinary patrols. He rose quietly, placing himself between the door and the boy, who slept peacefully on the bed. The glow of the crystal walls dimmed suddenly, as though the palace itself sensed something wrong. The door burst open. 5 figures in dark armor stormed in, faces hidden by masks, weapons gleaming with cold light. They did not carry the silver of palace guards, but the darker steel of private soldiers, mercenaries loyal not to the crown but to gold. One pointed his blade at Daniel. "Step aside, human. The child belongs to the council now." Daniel's chest tightened, but he did not move. His voice was low, steady. "You'll have to go through me first." The mercenaries laughed coldly. "Fool. You think you can stop us?" The boy stirred awake, eyes wide with fear. He clutched Daniel's arm tightly. That touch gave Daniel the strength he needed. Without hesitation, he grabbed the nearest chair and swung it with all his strength, shattering it against one of the attackers. The mercenary stumbled back, surprised that a human's raw strength could match alien steel. The fight erupted. Blades clashed, furniture shattered, sparks flew as weapons struck crystal walls. Daniel ducked and swung, driven not by skill but by desperation. He fought like a man protecting not himself, but something far more precious. Each time a blade came close, he placed himself between it and the boy. The mercenaries pressed forward, their numbers too many. Daniel's arms ached, his breath grew heavy, yet he refused to fall. And then, the door behind them blazed with light. Princess Leora stepped in, her robe flowing like fire, her eyes fierce. With a single gesture of her hand, the air itself cracked, throwing 2 mercenaries against the wall. Guards loyal to her rushed in behind, clashing with the attackers. "Traitors!" Leora's voice thundered. "How dare you raise steel in my palace?" The mercenaries faltered, but their leader hissed, "The council will not bow to prophecy. The boy is a danger. We act for the future." Leora's eyes narrowed like blades. "You act for your own fear." With another wave of her hand, light burst from the crystal walls, blinding the attackers. Guards seized them, dragging them down in chains. Silence fell in the chamber. Daniel leaned against the wall, his chest heaving, blood dripping from a shallow cut on his arm. The boy pressed against him, safe but shaken. Leora approached slowly. Her eyes lingered on Daniel, on the wounds across his skin, on the way he shielded the child with his own body. "You fought them," she said softly, almost in disbelief. Daniel looked up, his voice rough but steady. "I told you, I'll protect him, no matter who comes." Her gaze deepened, as though she were seeing something rare, something even she had not expected. "Most men fight for blood, for crown, for gain, but you fight for a child who is not even yours." Daniel gave a tired smile. "That's what makes him mine." Her breath caught for the briefest moment, though she quickly masked it. She turned sharply to her guards. "Prepare the sanctuary. It is no longer safe here. They will not stop until they have him." The guards bowed and hurried away. Leora turned back to Daniel. "You will come with me. There is a place older than this palace, hidden beneath the roots of the crystal mountains. There the truth may be revealed." Daniel hesitated, then nodded. Anywhere was safer than this hall of traitors. That night, under cover of silence, a small group slipped out of the palace. Daniel carried the boy in his arms, his steps steady despite his exhaustion. Leora walked beside him, her guards surrounding them like shadows. The city lay quiet beneath the twin moons, crystal towers glowing faintly in the dark. Yet Daniel felt eyes on them, whispers following their every step. They left the shining city behind, crossing into the wild lands beyond. The air grew colder, the light dimmer. The ground sparkled faintly, as though every stone held a memory of light. Strange plants bent toward the child, glowing softly as they passed. Hours later, they reached the base of a mountain. Its slopes were black crystal, jagged and sharp. At its heart, a great gate stood, an arch carved from stone older than the palace, older than the city itself. Runes glowed faintly across its surface. Leora raised her hand, and the runes flared brighter, the gate opening with a deep hum. Beyond lay a cavern of vast size filled with pillars of crystal that reached into endless dark. "This," Leora said softly, "is the sanctuary of echoes. Here the past speaks. Here, perhaps, we will find the truth of your child." Daniel stepped inside, the boy still in his arms. The cavern's air was thick, heavy with ancient energy. Lights pulsed across the walls like memories waiting to be told. The boy stirred, lifting his small hand. At once, the cavern answered. Crystals glowed brighter. Voices like distant whispers filled the air. Daniel's heart raced. He did not understand, but he knew this place recognized the boy. Leora watched in silence, her face pale with awe. "It begins," she whispered. Daniel looked at her, then at the boy. His arms tightened around the child as though anchoring him to the present. Whatever truth awaited them in this sanctuary, he knew it would change everything, and he also knew one more thing. The council would not stop hunting them. The sanctuary of echoes pulsed with quiet life. Its cavern walls shimmered with veins of crystal, glowing in rhythm with the boy's soft breaths. Daniel stood at the center of the vast chamber, the child cradled in his arms, while Princess Leora walked beside him, her eyes fixed on the glowing pillars as though they might whisper secrets long buried. The boy stirred and slipped down from Daniel's arms, walking with slow steps toward the largest crystal at the chamber's heart. His small hand rose and touched its surface. At once the cavern came alive. Light flared, sweeping across the walls. Voices filled the air, echoes of the past. Images formed in the crystal. A storm of fire in the sky, ships breaking apart, portals ripping open between worlds. Daniel's eyes widened. He recognized the storm. It was the same meteor wave that had struck his ship. But here, he saw something he had not before. A rift opening in the void, tearing through space like a wound. From that rift, fragments of energy flowed, twisting and shaping. The boy turned and his small body glowed faintly in the crystal light. The visions changed. Now they showed a figure of light forming, a child born not from a mother's womb, but from the union of two energies colliding. One was human, carried through the rift by Daniel's ship. The other was alien, drawn from the lifeblood of Leora's world. Together they had formed something new. Daniel's chest tightened. His voice was a whisper. He wasn't born like us. He was made. Leora's eyes shone in the crystal glow. "The prophecy," she breathed. "Born of two worlds, child of light and bridge of fate." The images faded, leaving silence behind. The boy walked back to Daniel, his hand reaching for safety. Daniel pulled him close, his arms tightening protectively. Leora stepped forward, her gaze heavy with meaning. "Now you see, human. The child has no mother, no father. He is a creation of destiny. And yet," she paused, her eyes softening, "he has chosen you." Daniel looked at her in confusion. "Chosen me?" She nodded. "When he first opened his eyes, he clung to you. He trusts you above all else. That is no accident. Whatever force brought him here, it gave him to you. You are his shield, his guide." The word struck Daniel like a weight. He looked down at the boy, who gazed back with eyes full of quiet trust. The child's hand held his sleeve as though nothing else in the world mattered. But even in this moment of truth, danger pressed close. Leora turned sharply as the sound of footsteps echoed through the cavern. Soldiers flooded in, nobles' private guards, their armor dark, their banners glowing with colors of defiance. Behind them strode the same council members who had shouted for the boy's removal. The leader raised his voice. "Seize the child. He is a weapon, not a blessing. The prophecy will bring ruin." Daniel stepped forward, placing himself firmly between the soldiers and the boy. His voice rang through the cavern. "No, he's not a weapon, he's a child and he's mine to protect." The soldiers advanced, but Leora raised her hand. Light burst from the crystals around her, forcing them back. Her voice carried like thunder. "Enough. This boy is no curse. He is a gift. If you cannot see it, then you are blinded by fear." The council shouted in protest, their words clashing in chaos. Some demanded destruction, others demanded control. Daniel looked at them all, his voice breaking through the storm. "You want to use him or you want to fear him? But none of you want to see him for what he really is. He's just a boy who needs to be safe. If prophecy makes him powerful, then he'll need people who teach him kindness, not people who chain on him." For a moment, silence followed. Even the council hesitated, unsettled by his words. Leora stepped closer to Daniel, her voice lower, but carrying across the chamber. "The choice is yours, human. You can leave him to us, to our council, to our temple. Or," she paused, her eyes holding his, "you can claim him as your own, not by blood, but by will." Daniel looked down at the boy, who gazed up at him with silent hope. His chest swelled with certainty. He had no doubts anymore. He faced the council, his voice steady. "He is mine. Not because of prophecy, not because of power, but because I choose him, and I won't let anyone take him." The boy pressed his face against Daniel's chest as though he understood. Leora's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, though her eyes shone with something deeper. "Then so it shall be." The nobles erupted in protest, but Leora's voice cut them down. "Silence. The council no longer rules this child's fate, I do, and I declare him under my protection, under the protection of the Crystal Court and this human who has proven his heart." The soldiers lowered their weapons slowly, unsure but unable to defy their princess. Daniel exhaled, relief flooding through him, though he knew this was not the end. The council's fear would not vanish overnight, but for now, the boy was safe. Later, as the suns rose outside and painted the sky in gold and silver, Daniel stood with the boy in the garden once more. The child laughed, chasing glowing birds that fluttered in circles. Leora watched from a distance, her eyes soft. She stepped beside Daniel quietly. "You have given me something I did not expect, human. A lesson. That bonds are not always born from blood, but from choice. Perhaps our worlds can learn the same." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what he's here for, to remind us." The boy ran back to them, his small hands reaching for both Daniel and Leora. He took their hands together, linking them. The simple gesture carried more power than prophecy. It was trust. It was hope. Daniel looked at Leora, and she at him. For the first time, there was no suspicion between them, only understanding. The world would not change overnight. The council would still argue, dangers would still come. But here, in this moment, something new had begun. The boy had no mother, no father, yet he had found a family, and Daniel knew one truth with absolute certainty. As long as he breathed, no one would ever take the child from him.